Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. Today, Kyle Bauer is at the 3i Show in Dodge City, learning about the show's history from Eddie Estes, manager of the show. Next, he visits with Robin Jennison, Kansas Secretary of Wildlife and Parks, about the walk-in hunting areas. Then it's the weekly Kansas Soybean Report, and then Kyle is back at the show with Brett Leopold with ITC, discussing high-voltage electric transmission lines and wind-generated electricity. We'll end with Ryan Witt, Noxious Weed Director for Stafford County. It's all coming up here on Farm Factor. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. This segment is brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Good morning and welcome back to Farm Factor at the 3i Show in Dodge City. Let's join Kyle Bauer as he and Eddie Estes discuss the origins of the 3i Show.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I have the opportunity and the pleasure to visit with Eddie Estes. He is the, I'll call you manager. You can help me out on the exact title here in a bit. For the 3i Show, we're in Dodge City, Kansas. The 3i Show has been a staple of Western Kansas agriculture for many, many years. And Eddie, I'd like for you to lay out the history of the 3i Show for me.
Well, first of all, the very first one, Kyle, was in Hays, Kansas in 1953. However, prior to that, it was a traveling caravan, they called it. They'd take about, 8 or 9 companies from Western Kansas. They basically would go from town square to town square, set up, have their show, go to the next town. And that's how the whole deal got started. And that was prior to 53. The association was actually born in 1949.
Well, and let's talk about the Western Kansas Manufacturers Association, who is actually the owner of the show. Tell us about that organization.
That's where it was established in 1949, and matter of fact, it was a group of Western Kansas manufacturers who wanted to do something as a group to promote manufacturing out in this part of the state. Nothing had been done up to that time, and all these folks said, it's up to us to do this, so let's just get it done. And that's exactly what happened. They got together, they made up the plan, but it took all those years, Kyle, to actually come up with a show that they would ground in Hays in 1953.
How long in Hays, and what was the evolution after that?
After that, it was all over the place. It was in Colby, it was in Liberal, it was in Pratt. It had been a lot of different places, but as it grew, and you understand this better than most, it's difficult to move something around that much. Once it really got some legs and, started to establish itself like it is, well, not quite like it is today, but even then it was getting pretty good size.
My first 3i Show that I came as a person that displayed was 1985, and talk about what things were like then and when you kind of came to semi-permanent places.
In 1970, that was the last time the show was in Dodge City, 1970. So after that time, it was really getting a pretty good size at that time. They decided, Kyle, to move it then to a couple of locations. So Garden City, Kansas and Great Bend, Kansas, then got in the picture, and they established some, locations to do that. And it was that way until we moved here to the permanent site in 2012.
And what was the reasoning to go to a permanent site?
A lot of reasons. Number one, the exhibitors. They wanted a permanent site. Right now, Kyle, we've already got buildings going up that are permanent. You can't do that when you're moving around like that. This site we have now, Kyle, has a 200,000 square foot building with more than 500 spaces just on one side of it, plus a full arena and a whole bunch of dirt section on the other side of it. We have 1,500,000 square feet outside with electrical hookups every 50 feet and a great surface that rain, snow, or whatever it might happen, we can still have the show and parking the same thing. So there's all those kind of reasons that you have to, and it's tough to do that. That's a tough decision to make, particularly when you've been, working in other communities for all those years.
We're visiting with Eddie Estes, the manager of the 3i Show. We're in Dodge City, Kansas. This is Kyle Bauer reporting.
Thanks, Kyle. Stay with us as Kyle catches up with Robin Jennison, Secretary of Wildlife and Parks for the state of Kansas. Coming up next on Farm Factor.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamandkansas.com. This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor. Let's join Kyle and Robin as they talk about the walk-in hunting areas in Kansas.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I have the opportunity to visit with Robin Jennison, longtime friend. We're out here in southwest Kansas right now, which is where he's originally from. But Robin, you are now the Secretary of Wildlife and Parks for the state of Kansas. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about your walk-in hunting areas because it affects both the city people that are listening as well as the farmers. That program's been fairly successful.
Kyle, it's been a great program. We've got over 1 million acres of walk-in hunting, which we are second only to South Dakota. South Dakota's up just shy of 1.5 million. Over the last couple of years, to add to the walk-in hunting, we've got voluntary public access program where it's a little bit different in that we do it as a 10-year contract, and it's a significant payment up front. And really, it's blended very well toward out in this country where you have a circle, and so you can put it on the corners of a circle, and that qualifies you to get the major payment. But it doesn't have to be on a circle, and there are other opportunities. But in a state like Kansas, where 97% of our ground's held in private hands, for people to have the opportunity to hunt, it's going to take place on private land. And so that was really the genesis of the walk-in hunting program. That's what we're trying to build on, and we are second in the nation. And there are people that come to Kansas and hunt that could go to Nebraska, but Nebraska does not have as vibrant a program as we have, and certainly South Dakota's got a great program. They've had a lot of CRP come out, much more than we have, and we've heard some concerns up in South Dakota about the potential of their pheasant crop. Of course, they've had the same issues over the last 4 years that we have with the drought, and so the last 4 years have not been the greatest pheasant hunting opportunities, but they're coming back significantly, and it's a great time to really double up our efforts on increasing our program.
What do you think the reason we're seeing those numbers come back? I know up our area we're seeing numbers come back.
Well, with pheasant, it's totally moisture. With quail, that's part of it. But there has been a quail initiative in Kansas, I'm going to say for 5-6 years. It started before I was secretary, so I'm not real sure on the length of time. It's having some impact. I mean, it's having some great impact. I was just talking to a fella from Sedan, Kansas, which would have been it's just some of the great quail country in Kansas, and he's seeing more quail than he's seen for 19 years. And I'm hearing the same types of reports in quail country. So I think it's more than just the rain. I mean, there were a lot of fescue grasses planted in quail areas, and we're seeing a return to native grasses, which is being very helpful for the quail. And so it's habitat. I think this younger generation of farmer has been very willing to try to put that into their farming practices. There are a lot of opportunities to do habitat where it doesn't cost you in the bottom line on your farming. In fact, in some cases, it may improve it. I mean, we've got people that are in pasture areas that are taking out cedar trees, which is great for in those particular areas. It'd be prairie chicken. That's great for the prairie chicken, and it makes them more money. We've had people talk about bringing water flow back into the creeks in their pastures by taking out cedar trees. So there's a lot of things that agriculture can do as it relates to habitat that will pay them.
We're visiting with Secretary of Wildlife and Parks, Robin Jennison. This is Kyle Bauer reporting.
Thanks, Kyle. Now it's time to grab that cup of coffee, but don't go far away. Next up is this week's Kansas Soybean Report.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Report.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Nick Streff, Deputy Director of USDA's Northern Office of the National Agricultural Statistics Service, joins us. Nick, the latest numbers from NASS came out in regards to the size of the U.S. soybean crop and Kansas soybean crop. Let's first focus on the size of the U.S. crop. What were some of the numbers?
The latest numbers from our October 1 survey showed the U.S. soybean crop is forecast at 3.89 billion bushels. That's down 1% from September and down about 1% from last year.
Were there any changes as far as yield size and harvested acres?
Yes, there were some changes. On a yield perspective, we're looking at it was up slightly on the U.S. level at 47.2 bushels per acre. And acres harvested for grain are at 82.4 million bushels. That's down 1% from September and down 1% from last year.
Now, as far as the state of Kansas is concerned, what did USDA's latest estimate show for what we may have for the Kansas soybean crop?
On the Kansas side of things, we're looking at a potential forecasted production of 144 million bushels. That's up 3% from last year. The yield is forecast at 37 bushels per acre. That's unchanged from September, but it's up 1.5 bushels from last year. And the production increase is coming from a revision to harvested acres for Kansas, which revised the acres up to 3.9 million acres.
And that was kind of the overall theme for a lot of grains, that it was just going to be less harvested acres, even though we could see that yield go up. But just a lot of less harvested acres in this case.
Yeah, correct in some cases. For the Kansas soybean number, it was actually a revision upward on the soybean side of things based on the most up-to-date FSA information for October.
And, Nick, looking at the U.S. crop again overall with the number of 3.89 billion, that's got to be pretty close to the all-time high?
Correct. If this is realized, it would be the second highest of all time. Last year, the record production was 3.93 billion bushels.
All right, Nick, we appreciate you joining us to update us on the latest U.S. soybean and Kansas soybean crop production numbers.
Thank you.
And that is Nick Streff, who is Deputy Director of USDA's Northern Office of the National Agricultural Statistics Service, as he updated us on the latest USDA NASS estimates on the U.S. soybean production and Kansas soybean production for 2015. He joins us on this edition of the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Report. Stay tuned for Kyle's visit with Brett Leopold with ITC, the Independent Transmission Company.
I will take action against herbicide-resistant weeds. I will know my weeds, and I will stop them before they go to seed. I will do whatever it takes to give my crops the upper hand, and I will use multiple herbicide sites of action because every action counts. I will take action, this time for all time.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag. Farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application. fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Welcome back. Let's catch up with Kyle and Brett as they discuss working with landowners in western Kansas to transmit wind-generated electricity.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer in Dodge City. I have the opportunity to visit with Brett Leopold. He is with ITC. ITC is a unique company for the state of Kansas. Deals with a lot of farmers, a lot of rural areas, but not necessarily a name that everyone will know. Brett, tell us about ITC.
ITC is an independent transmission company. We build high voltage electric transmission lines, and in the last several years we've built almost 500 miles of transmission line in the state of Kansas. 2 large projects, both originating at Spearville, and one running from Spearville north to the Nebraska border, and another line which we recently put in service originated at Spearville, and that continued to Medicine Lodge and on into Wichita.
Now, it appears when you talk about Spearville, then you're talking about the wind industry. Do you work specifically with wind-generated electricity?
We don't work specifically with wind-generated electricity. In fact, our lines are available to transmit power from all generation sources and do transmit power from all generation sources. These projects in western Kansas were identified by the regional transmission planners in part because of the need for additional capacity to move wind power, but they also generally provide greater reliability, more efficient access to low-cost power to all the customers in western Kansas and this region, and for the utilities that serve those customers.
You know, it's my perception that as I think about long-distance transmission lines, most of them run east and west, and you're running north and south. Is that a coincidence, or is that part of the plan?
It is part of the plan. Again, the regional transmission planners identified a great need for additional north-south transmission capacity reaching up into Nebraska, as well as a need to have more efficient connections between western and eastern Kansas that was served by the project from Spearville to Wichita. So it was an intentional decision of the planners to enhance and make a more robust grid flowing in both those directions.
Dealing with farmers and agricultural landowners, what are your biggest challenges?
You know, we've had a great relationship with landowners. We've acquired easements from hundreds of farmers in the state of Kansas, and I would say that we work very closely with each individual to identify their concerns about our project. Obviously, some farmers are using their land for crops. They may have center pivot irrigation. They care about where the line is in proximity to their roads and to the way that they like to harvest their crops. Other landowners are grazing livestock. Some are using their ground for hunting. So we just work with each individual landowner and try to find the least intrusive, most acceptable way to allow them to continue to use their land as they were using it before the project came through their property.
That was Brett Leopold with ITC. This is Kyle Bauer reporting from Dodge City.
Thanks, Kyle. Next, Ryan Witt, Noxious Weed Director for Stafford County and last year's president of the Noxious Weed Director statewide, discusses the variety of weeds found across the state.
Biodiesel made from sustainable resources is diversifying our fuel supply. This year, biodiesel will displace over 1 billion gallons of fossil fuel nationwide. It's making our economy stronger and our communities healthier. It's working here and across America. Get biodiesel going in your community. Visit americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
I'm a patient of Kansas Regenerative Medicine in Manhattan. I had stem cell therapy in my hips and my left knee. My wife and I both are patients. We went down there the same day in November. Since then, my hips are feeling a lot better. I can work now most of the day if I want to. And before, if I worked in the morning, I was done in the afternoon, or if I worked in the afternoon, I was sure enough done for the rest of the day.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor. Let's meet up with Kyle and Ryan as they discuss weeds in Kansas and the job of County Noxious Weed Director.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer from Dodge City. I have the opportunity to visit with Ryan Witt. He's the Noxious Weed Director for Stafford County, but last year he was the president of the Noxious Weed Directors statewide. Ryan, when you have a statewide organization, weeds vary in different portions of the state. Are there some that about everyone fights?
The main one in Kansas is field bindweed. I think everyone has that. It's been a problem forever. It was introduced back in the 30s for land erosion, and it just got out of control. The next one would probably be musk thistle. I'm sure a lot of people remember as kids growing out into pastures and having to dig musk thistle. And those are our two worst. The one that is actually spreading right now is Cerisa lespedeza. Was more in the eastern part of the state in rangeland and CRP, but it has come out west in CRP. So that's the three we fight mainly.
Now, state statute requires every county to have a noxious weed director, but that still varies from county to county how they deal with that position.
That's exactly right. Yeah, everyone has it. You're supposed to, for inspections, everything else that they do. Some have varied responsibilities besides noxious weed. They might be road and bridge, household hazardous waste, recycling, but mainly, like myself, just the noxious weed director. And the state requires that each county have that.
And so what would the noxious weed director do in most counties, or how does the noxious weed director deal with noxious weeds in most counties?
Each county has their own programs. Some will go out and custom spray in a farmer's field. Others just supply the chemical. In statute, it is the landowner's responsibility to take care of that. So they can come in and get some cost share. Most counties will have cost share on the chemical, 25 to 50%. That all depends on mill levies and other things. Not every county does it, and every county is different. Like I say, some are required to go out. The commissioners would like them to go out and do the treatment. Others just supply the chemical. Otherwise, they are responsible for the county's ground, the right-of-ways and stuff like that, and do the treatment there.
There are some misperceptions on the powers of the county weed director and what they are required by law to do, and sometimes people misunderstand that.
That's exactly right. And it is one thing, it is the landowner in statute that it is the landowner's responsibility to take care of the noxious weeds. After an inspection, the director can come out, and if they're not getting taken care of, can give warning notices and legal notices, and then actually go out and have to treat that, and then it will cost the landowner that. There's also, they can take them to court, fine them. There's usually not jail time, but it can go through the legal system and become quite a bad thing. And so that's, we just appreciate if people will try and do that on their own. We try and work with them a lot, but if it's not getting done, then it is the county's responsibility, the weed director's responsibility to go out and treat that and get it taken care of.
We're visiting with Ryan Witt. Ryan is the weed director for Stafford County. We are visiting in Dodge City. This is Kyle Bauer reporting.
Thanks for joining us at the 3 Eyes Show in Dodge City. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor. We're here every Tuesday on Ag AM in Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission, The Soybean Checkoff, Progress, powered by Kansas farmers. To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamnkansas.com.